Cool. Well, here we are. Uh, I was just listening, or actually I was just watching a video that David Wilcock, he did not post it. Somebody else posted it, but ever since his resignation letter, I've been adamantly searching for some sort of response, like a quote unquote official response by David Wilcock, because it's, like this is huge. It's a pretty big deal with his resignation letter and the things that he's accusing Gaia of and all of that. So it's like I actually posted a video. I did a podcast where I talked about Enki and Enlil and David Wilcock and his accusations about Gaia and stuff. And like, I made it very clear that I respect David Wilcock. I looked up to him kind of like a brother, and I totally think he has got so much great information. It's why I followed him over the years. But at the same time, I'm sort of like stumped by some of the stuff that's going on, and I acknowledge that I don't know everything, and that but I also had to put my 2 cents in about the Enki and Enlil story, because I think that was very crucial to his resignation letter and one of the main points in regard to Gaia. So anyway, I was just watching I finally, like the other day, I found a video of David Wilcock and one of his insiders, Emery Smith, talking about the secret space program. I was just watching that, and I got a good vibe from it overall. I haven't finished it yet, but definitely interesting.
It's and I really love how you said, I acknowledge that I don't know everything. And I would like to start off with, as well, I acknowledge that I do not know everything. And that's exciting, because it means that we have so much room to grow and to learn. And this conversation, I know, will help to illuminate more. I just have this, great feeling every single time we have a conversation. So cheers. Let's begin.
Yes. Cheers to that. Cheers to this. This is our first, like, I'm sure we've attempted doing podcast recordings in the past and have gone through the trial and error process of figuring out how to do it best. And we have our own, for everybody that's listening right now, which it's not live, by the way, but just for future, in the grand scheme of things, there is no time in the sense as we know it. So for all of you listening now, Kara and I have had a project in development for many years, and also not just in development, but in production, which is called A2K. In a lot of ways means access to knowledge, or and all the things that come with that. And it's cool. It's cool that we're doing this. It's not official yet, but it is official. This is great that we're doing this.
Well, it's funny too, because how you say it is official, because the now is the official time. There is no other time. So now we are embarking on this journey to really recording these amazing conversations we've had over the past 11 years. I still cannot believe that. And I'm really excited to share our perspective with the world. It's such a great time to be alive, and it's such a great time to be our age, and it is absolutely required of us to lift our voice and get excited so other people can also get excited to access to knowledge. And A2K, I've been going through some interesting times, and I think access to knowledge, the knowledge is a capital K, and I really am excited to talk about that more later on, but I really feel like this is divine knowledge that we're going after, and not just a knowing in the lower case sense, if you will.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah,
that was a little tandem, but I find it important to say it's like the divine knowledge.
Yeah,
or the
right.
cosmic knowledge.
Yeah, because knowledge almost implies information, and you could talk about information on a level like just a thing that comes to mind, the terms of book smart and street smart. You know, there's the spectrum of knowledge, and like knowledge of information of things of like that can inform you. But I like knowledge with a capital K, to me, resonates with knowledge of the, like you said, knowledge of the divine, knowledge of like knowledge, important knowledge, as some may say, the secret knowledge, the knowledge that's been kept from humankind for so long or exploited in certain ways. A lot of what Uncle Bruce talks about with the knowledge of self-empowerment and how that applies to the empowerment of humanity, the knowledge of who we really are, our place in the world, our connection to the divine through nature, how nature itself is divine, and how it's all one.
Indeed. And I think it's so, oh my goodness. I think that access to knowledge is so crucial with the capital K, because we're swimming in so much data. And so knowledge could be, just looking at a database, or which would be lowercase k. Capital K would be knowing what to do with the data. And, just having knowledge or having information is not wisdom. Knowing what to do with the knowledge and the data is wisdom.
That's it. That's a huge thing. We're totally on the same wavelength with this, as always. Knowledge and wisdom as two pillars of truth, in that what we're describing as knowledge with the capital K, I would imagine ultimately is what wisdom is, which is the experiential type of knowledge, the knowledge that we have lived and through experience. Because you can have a lot of information, or like they could say, like there's the walking the talk expression, to walk the talk, because you can have a lot of knowledge, but that out of balance with the experience of using that knowledge or embodying that knowledge can lead to a lot of issues. So it's almost like what we're really getting at here is the wisdom.
Yeah, totally. And you know what I also think is so funny about this conversation, which I'm telling you what, there's a divine order always over our conversations. We always talk about things that are relevant to what's going on, but not only relevant, I feel so circular in our conversations, because what I hear us also talking about, and it leads into what we were going to talk about what we discussed we were going to talk about, which is Yeshua and Lucifer versus Enlil and Enki. And what I hear us right now really is pinging in my brain the story, the Edenic story, where Lucifer tempted Eve and said, you will be wise as serpents, eat of the true tree of knowledge. And it's so funny that we're talking about this, because this is exactly what we're meant to discuss.
We've always envisioned A2K starting off like in the structure of how in the many incarnations of describing how we would actually carry out this plan, right? We've always envisioned whatever it was, no matter how the different changes and all the different incarnations of this like structure, somehow it always started off with, let's talk about Gods of Eden. Let's talk about this book, because that was a big part of our initiation as friends and getting to know each other and learning and going on this path was Gods of Eden. And for anybody listening right now, Gods of Eden is a book written by William Bramley, and Kara, you and I, we bonded over this. I remember you recommended to me to check this book out, and I got it.
Yeah,
and
out of all my friends that recommended it to you, and only one other person had the courage to read it.
Well, it changed my life. It totally changed my life in the sense that it opened up a door, or it opened up a window to looking at history, looking at human history in a different way, and examining the whole concept of the biblical stories of creation from a historical context. And it brings in so much of the Sumerian epic of creation with the biblical version. And you know what? It's like how William Bramley wrote Gods of Eden. And I've talked about this. I talked about this on a previous thing. I think one of my first podcasts where I talked about this. Gods of Eden, when William Bramley wrote this, as you know, he did not intend to write a book about extraterrestrial origins of humankind. He set out to write a book about the origins of war, and goes on many paper trails, which ultimately lead him back to this like extraterrestrial influences upon humanity. And he would always end up at these points and just be like, well, wait a minute, I must have taken a wrong turn somewhere in my research. Let me go back and start again. But over many years, he ended up back at the same place. So as a good researcher, which he is, he couldn't just like put that by the wayside. He had to incorporate it into the story. So it became Gods of Eden. And it totally influenced and brought a lot of light to the situation of what's going on.
And to that point, I was so excited that so passionate about God's Eden, and it really did influence all of our conversations. We looked at it. It's like we're in the Gods of Eden book club because it's so dense. It's so thick with knowledge and wisdom, and I'm excited to
Oh, hey, Carrie, there?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm gonna
okay.
try it without. Hold on one second. I'm gonna see if I can just do it on regular, like if I actually need to be connected to this.
Okay. Very good. And I can edit out these little pauses in the conversation so that we have a consistent stream of consciousness going on. Yeah. Testing, check 1, 2.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Whew. Okay, good. Thank goodness.
Yeah, no, we're good. That sounds actually better than it was before.
Oh, good. Yeah, so let's just pick up, and I want to give a little background into what's been going on with me and my journey with Gods of Eden. And it's really more of my my journey back to being one with the Creator. And I feel like I'm going to always frame it like that because it's not a religious journey, it's not a spiritual journey, it's this journey that only Kara, Jacinta can go through. And my walk with the Creator, can you still hear me? Okay, good.
Oh, yeah.
My walk with the Creator has taken me on a whirlwind since finding Gods of Eden, but it even backtracks before Gods of Eden when I first started my meditation and prayer life. And it was the first time that I saw the face of God. And I saw it through, I was focusing on the name of that I believe is the Creator. I was just focusing on this and breathing in and breathing out. And it took me on such a love journey. The the face of God is so loving and so caring and so compassionate. And I mean, I just started weeping, like tears just started streaming down my eyes. Actually, what happened was, it's so wild to talk about, but I was seated with ascended beings and ones who have walked the earth, and the love that radiated off of this group of individuals was so empowering. I mean, I'd never felt love like that before in my life. And that was before I met you, Alex. And then it took me up to Montana, and I ended up, I mean, I just felt so called, like God was saying, move to Montana. And I want to start in exchanging any word that I would ever say God for and say creator. The creator told me to go up to Montana, and went to Montana. It was like a year and a half later, I ended up meeting a co-author for the Summit University Lighthouse. Do you know them?
No, I don't think so.
They wrote Saint Germain on Alchemy. They talk a lot about ascended beings, ascended masters. Do you know Elizabeth Clare Prophet?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. So I ended up working for kind of one of the individuals who was her direct assistant, and took care of her in her later years, and he became my spiritual mentor. And fast track to meeting you, I think it was probably only 3 years, and then I met you, and through finding Uncle Bruce's work, and I was just like, oh my goodness, this is so exciting. And so fast track to now, my walk with ascended beings is very strong. And so there was a time, though, probably right around the time where you came to Arizona, and we like, did those cards, and said we need to love Dick Cheney. Around that time. I was going through such a tumultuous time that I kind of stopped my prayer life. And that's really where I started reading a lot more and just diving deep into history, and Gods of Eden was just so crucial. And I believe that my lack of prayer during that time was actually for a purpose. It served a purpose. Anyway, so fast track up till now, I'm rereading the Bible, and going through the Hebrew and the Greek version, diving deeper, because I feel it's so challenging to describe, but there's so many similarities between Gods of Eden and the Bible. And it's so funny, right after we got off of our phone call today, I started diving down the deep rabbit hole of, is Enki Yeshua? Is Enki Lucifer? It's just prolific, the amount of people who have weighed in on this topic. And I still don't know. So I think that these conversations could be more where we're diving in and finding out and just discussing what we've learned. And because for me to say that I know specifically if Enki is Yeshua or Enki is Yahweh, I would be doing a disservice to so many people. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking, Alex, that we just kind of dive deeper and see what we find and tell everyone what we find.
I couldn't agree more, Kara. That I love that. It's like we're on a stepping stone here. The best piece of knowledge is that we know very little. It's like the limited spectrum of that which we know. It's like if we begin on a step of certainty on any subject, then I think, like you said, we'd be doing a disservice to the whole context at heart here. So, and like with Enki and Enlil at mind, of course, with our revelations we've had over the years in regard to all this stuff, my personal take, to fast track to now, is that these are two archetypes, and we could totally go into the subject of whether these these were actual character or people in historical context. But for the sake of this point that I'm trying to make, the Enki and Enlil archetypes have been interchangeable in their association throughout human history and throughout our understanding of what good and evil is. And it's so multi-layered that on one level, I think it's very likely that Enki or Prince Ea could very well be associated with Lucifer. But on another element, it's like in a more modern, contemporary cabal, satanic, Illuminati way, Enki could totally is being worshipped as like the devil, like as a bad guy. So it's like the proverbial angel and the devil on your shoulders. It's like the nature of relativity, that like one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. If you take a step back in that world, it's like, well, yeah, it's like you got to combat it, like we're saying, like we have to love Dick Cheney, we have to love our enemies, like we're all one here. So in one way, it's like, it's not like it's one versus the other. I mean, yes, there is this spiritual war, which is a whole nother like thematic element to this, but I think in general these characters have been co-opted throughout history by different groups, and the story has been changed over many years. And let's, like, for the sake of the argument, whether you're like revering Enki as a good guy and Enlil as a bad guy, or vice versa, it could very well be dependent on the environment and the belief systems of the people that are worshiping those characters, are these deities, let's just say. Because that's the thing, is that in the mythos of all this, they're deities, which are sort of like godlike symbolic beings that can be revered or worshipped. But I think back to like what you were saying before about God, in the sense of being this infinite creator, that the story of Enki and Enlil, it's almost a story, it's like it's a proto-human story, right? Like we're always in this, there's always like a one team versus the other, and it's almost like this Gods of Eden epic between Enki and Enlil is like one of the first versions of that story. But with that in mind, there is still, it's like, who's the good, who's the God, and who's the devil in this situation? Well, I think we can both agree that there is an infinite source of unconditional love, forgiveness, and creation that almost transcends that whole narrative of which side versus the other. The angels, like, because the thing is, like, the angels versus the devils, right? The demons and the angels were just messengers, whether they were from the good side or the bad side. But when it comes down to it, the messengers of the angels were just the emissaries of the quote unquote God, like the true God, which is like the creator. So it's like, and I mentioned this earlier in our conversation about like, it's in a way, and it's, again, like, just to bring out, it's like, I don't claim to know one fact over the other, but in terms of a discussion, it's almost like they're the middle management between us and the true nature of things. Because, and then just one last thing to kind of illustrate this point, in Star Wars, the most recent Star Wars film, The Last Jedi, I don't know, have you seen this by any chance?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, without getting into too much spoiler content or whatever, there's a thing in Star Wars called the Force. And the Force is this universal force that penetrates and binds the universe together. And throughout Star Wars mythology, the Force has been used for good and it has been used for bad, demonstrated by the Jedi, who are the quote-unquote good guys, and the Sith, who are the quote-unquote bad guys. So, like, in this case, let's talk about the Jedi being Obi-Wan Kenobi and the Sith being Darth Vader. So in the new Star Wars movie, there's a very strong message that comes in that the Force is not, it's like, if the Jedi were to die, that doesn't mean the Force dies. The force is going to be existing no matter what. It's all a matter of how we use it. It's like technology. Like a hammer can be used to build a house, and it can also be used as a weapon to hurt people. It's not necessarily the tool that is right or wrong. It's simply a tool. That's an understatement for what the force is, as being just a tool. But regardless, the force is this force that, in my understanding, is the force of the Creator. It's this unconditional, loving force of love and forgiveness and universal, universal understanding. And then that gets co-opted or affiliated with different factions or different perceptions. Like, and I think this might be a biological thing, how we have a right and left hemisphere of our brain. There's one side that perceives information in one way, and one side that perceives it in another way. Or even your brain and your heart. Your heart perceives logic and possibilities, whereas your heart is a detector of love or fear. So it's like there's always going to be this polarity or this duality of understanding. But like a yin yang, here's another example of that: the yin yang. You've got the light side and the dark side of the yin yang. But the thing that, in my opinion, is what the Creator is really all about is the circle that encompasses both of these forces. Because when you remove the yin or the yang, you still got a circle there. And I think that when it comes down to this whole Gods of Eden story and my current understanding of it, it's good to recognize what the light side is versus the dark side. What is the boundary that differentiates these two? But at the same, what I think is more of a valuable discussion in like a stepping off point as a foundation for this new paradigm is to recognize the circle, how there is this unified field that brings that all of this polarity comes out of.
This is such an dense topic because it brings up so many things that I don't even know where to start. One thing that I want to highlight, oh gosh, it's just wild to me because you could study years and years and years of Sumerian texts or Sanskrit or the Hebrew language, just dive as deep as you can and still not understand the complexity of where we're at and who we are. Just specifically talking about our bodies, the human blood is so fascinating. How you have all of these different types of blood. We have the rhesus positive, the rhesus negative, and recently a lot of scientists have been coming out about rhesus negative individuals having a DNA that's linked off planet. And then we get into even reptilians and how much that links a little bit back to the Eden story of Lucifer and the snake. Just right before this conversation, I was diving deep into Enlil and Enki and learning about, or just kind of diving as deep as I can into this question of how does this story relate to the Bible story? I found, was reminded that, we are a slave race at this moment in time. And truly, when you think about how the system is working right now, with 7% interest on every dollar, we are having to, our time is just wrapped up in this work system environment. And it really highlights me back to nature, because nature, a tree doesn't really have to work very hard. It's designed to grow, and it's designed to create oxygen, and it's designed to create a network underneath the soil. And that's how I believe humans are. And so this idea that we have to work and work and slave, to me, must come from something other than the creator. And that's how I look at it, because to me, I just see nature and I see the brilliance and the complexities and things that I still can't even understand. And I'm just in shock and awe. And that reminds me of the book of Job, which is actually the oldest book of the Bible, not Genesis. Job is.
I'm familiar with this story
Yeah.
of Job. It's a pretty incredible telling story about all of this stuff.
It is. And that's exactly why I mean, Job has always been something that I've been so connected with, and I had to dive deeper into it. I've always dived deeper into it. In fact, last night I was just reading Job again. And chapters 30 through 40 just astound me in the things that God is talking about. But it also highlights how God was meeting with, and in the Greek word Satan is actually adversary. It doesn't necessarily, state like it was Lucifer or Satan or anything like that. So I think that needs to be studied a little bit more to understand, to really get a good grasp between the Bible and God's Eden. But one thing I want to highlight is the state of the planet that we are on right now is atrocious, and it's a system designed to keep people down, to not realize their talents, and to not self-actualize, and to be dependent on government, and it reminds me of this quote: you can tell a lot by a civilization by many things, but one being how they treat their elderly, how they treat their youth, and how they treat their prisoners, what type of music they listen to, and what type of movies they watch. In my opinion, those are like the top 5 ways you can analyze a civilization. And when you look, just see it at the state of all the world, because everyone is kind of in this boat, in my opinion. The whole planet needs a little bit of rehabilitation, and I say a little bit like kind of like sarcastically. And the state, and this is why I'm so excited for you to be making movies, Alex, because the movies that I see coming out these days are so horrific, and I use that word, not horror. They're horrific, and they're designed to get people to fear. And the other day I was listening to something that said the opposite of love isn't hate, it's fear. So I am excited in these conversations to dive into where does this pervasive fear come from? Because when I have a really strong and tight relationship with my creator, and I'm going to say my creator also, I'm not going to say the creator, because I don't want to put my beliefs on anyone else. When I have the tightest relationship with my creator, there is no fear. There is no presence. There's no room for fear. It's not like I even have to work to eliminate fear. The love is so pervasive and so overwhelming and so bright and light that fear, it's like a shadow, and it just disappears because the sun is so bright. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's like all there is love, and fear is is totally the part, like a way of linguistically describing that symptom of being separated or having this delusion of separation. But at the same time, it's like all there is love. And when this whole in the last couple weeks, really specifically, I've been delving back into the Gnostic texts of that come from the earliest forms of Christianity, because for any, like you and I are both aware, but for anyone that's listening, to look up Gnosticism, because the earliest form of Christianity was not what we consider Christianity today. Christianity has gone through many different phases, and it's still going through phases, namely the belief in the Christ or the story of Jesus and all that. But in the earlier days of Christianity, from let's say 30 AD to 400 AD, in those first like couple hundred years of the birth of Christianity, it was a rogue religion in a way. There was a rogue belief system in the world of the Roman Empire, which was totally banned, and they were being burned at the stake constantly. And there's a really great podcast called Hardcore History by this guy Dan Carlin, who it goes so in depth into like, and you can look. He has got a great series, so many different historical subjects, and he just paints what I love about him is he paints a picture with so much context. He's got so much information and knowledge and a way of explaining it and telling the story, because it's like ultimately history is a story. A lot of people say it's his story, and what about her story? Well, maybe there's a whole side of history that we really have not been listening to, and that might be part of what the whole gods of Eden thing is. But the whole thing with the Gnostics was that like as opposed to agnostic, which is in so many words saying that, yes, I recognize there is something, it's basically saying, I don't know, which is totally cool. Like, I think that's great. I acknowledge that. But, you know, but the difference between agnostics and Gnostics, where Greek, the word for gnosis means knowledge. The Gnostics in the early days of Christianity were people that said, look, there is, yes, I'm limited in my perception of what this great reason and creation's all about. But through gnosis, through knowledge, we can become more similar in form or similar in understanding to what creation's all about. So basically, it was like almost an origin to the phrase "knowledge is power." That through knowledge you can gain power and understanding through things. And there's a lot of understanding about Gnosticism, which talks about there's a creation in a different way, where creation comes from a one infinite source. And it tells this story of an unfolding from that infinite source. Let's say there was no boundaries, you know, because if there's a cell, let's like use the example of a cell. A cell has a membrane, and there's inside the cell and outside the cell. But in terms of the all infinite creation, there are no boundaries. The inside and the outside are one and the same. So it's just, by definition, it's infinite. So there's really no way of knowing itself in context of anything other than itself, because it's all one. So according to the Gnostic understanding of creation, it was this unfolding of creation to create self-similar forms of itself so that it may like simulate free will. The way I would best describe this, it's like a hall of mirrors, where you shine a light through a hall of mirrors, or you walk into a hall of mirrors, and you're standing there surrounded by all these mirrors, and each reflection looks independent as if it's its own person, but it's all emanating from a singular source. So Gnostic story of creation is kind of like, and I don't claim to be a Gnostic expert in any way, but it's like basically describing the unfolding of this. How did one infinite source from infinity become so separate from itself? And it's like basically creating these halls of mirrors. But then it came to a point, and this is where it gets interesting. It comes to a point in the creation and the unfolding and the creation of all these mirrors that it became so full of mirrors that there were no more room for mirrors. And then by the creating one more mirror, it was like a critical mass. And that one new mirror shattered into hundreds of thousands of shards. And so like, and this is where it really, like the creator or the one infinite source truly separated and created something, quote unquote, like with free will. So in the Gnostic understanding, this is where the being known as the demiurge was created. Now the demiurge is a creator of the physical world. So like once the creation went and basically created this boundary where now for all intents and purposes there's an inside and an outside. Now there's an inside world, and the demiurge was the ruler of the inside world, of the world of matter, of the world of physicality. And ultimately the demiurge in most Gnostic understandings and teachings is not a pleasant being. It's almost like a demonic force. It's literally the war, like what I would think a lot of the affiliations with what we consider to be like in modern times, the devil to be like the master of the hell and like the material world. That's like what, like when we feel what what the devil is all about. I think that's what we're thinking with the demiurge is. It's like, this is not the real creator. It's not like the infinite source of everything and infinite love and all that. It's more of just like the predominant ruler or physical manifestor of the inside world. And
well, that would really line up with, Lucifer separating from the prime creator and rebelling and then falling, which is like lowering a vibration. And then here we have this physical illusionary world.
Yes, exactly. And the thing is, like, again, I just want to make another reference to how this story that we're developing here is so multi-layered, and to really understand it, it's like you were saying before, it's like it's hard to understand the whole thing. Like we can't, it's almost like it almost seems impossible because it's so multi-layered. It's like impossible to wrap our minds around it because our minds are a faction of the whole, like a separate entity of the whole. But and at the same time, it's like this also applies to the story of Enki and Enlil, whereas the story itself of Lucifer separating from God and saying, I'm going to, like, I could do this better, I'm going to do that, it speaks volumes to the story of the demiurge. But according to the story of Gods of Eden in the book, there is also another narrative of what evidently or allegedly is a historical account of the Sumerian creation story, where we're not necessarily dealing with the cosmology of Gnosticism with the infinite source of creation separating and create, like the Hall of Mirrors metaphor I was just using. But in the Gods of Eden narrative, you've got this council of beings, the Anunnaki or Enlil and the rest of the rest of these beings who are not like necessarily spiritual beings, but let's just, like, for this conversation, call them just like another form of just like living beings. And the story of Enki is Enki rebelling against Enlil in the sense that Enlil was running a slave population. Because back to what we were saying before, it's like a being like the demiurge who wants to essentially keep the world in ignorance, keep the world away from knowledge. And in the story of Garden of Eden, the one tree that was forbidden to Adam and Eve was the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And it's like, don't eat that tree. And on one level, you could say it's like, well, this is a story about following, like being obedient. Like, it's like listening to what, someone who, like a parent who knows what's best for you, and you breaking that covenant with them and then suffering the consequences. So there is that level to it. But on another layer, according to Enki and Enlil's story, as you know, Enlil was almost like a slave driver. He was in charge of a slave population on Earth. And it's like, again, it beckons questions like, well, what's the origin of slavery? Was it always like this? Because that's not really what creation's all about. So what the hell is the origin of, why are we suffering under this crazy belief system and behavior on Earth? And it's like, well, the Enki and Enlil story suggests that Enlil was ultimately a slave owner who had a purpose of mining resources on Earth. Enki being a genetic engineer of sorts who created humankind.
Which is precisely why so I'm going to be open here and tell you what I'm kind of leaning towards in please. The Anu and the Enki Enlil, how they relate to the Bible. I'm starting to feel like, Anu being the prime creator, had two sons, Enlil and Enki. I am of just this heart, kind of where I feel my walk is taking me, that Enlil is Lucifer and Enki is Yeshua.
Kara, I'll be honest with you. I've been like waiting to hear, because I could tell, like, based on our conversations earlier and just now, like I've been like biting, like waiting, like, oh my God, like what's this new revelation? And I'm curious, like what you just said there. It's like, honestly, that's where we've pretty much been at consistently ever since we read the Gods of Eden. And I think that is the truth. And it's like, again, it's like get back to how many layers there are. To fast forward for a second, it's like we've got this satanic cabal running the world economy, keeping people in slavery, worshiping the quote unquote devil, who in this storyline is Enki. But if anybody knows Enki and what Enki was all about, Enki was not about, like, he was about the opposite of that. He was like, no, don't worship a being higher than yourself. Like, we're all one here. You got to stop living in the matrix, wake up from the program. So ironically, it's like, I wanted to bring this statement in there. It's like anything that was ever good on this planet seemed to have gotten exploited at one point or another. And the whole story of Enki and the true gnosis about who we are, where we come from, and the total pole reversal of, like, yes, the God that we've been worshiping is actually the devil. Like they say that the greatest trick the devil ever played was convincing the world that he didn't exist. But as Graham Hancock says, it goes a step further and say the greatest trick the devil ever played was convincing the world that he is God. So it's interesting because, like, David Wilcock, as advertised, it's like that's what these people believe. They're worshiping the devil. And his main point of argument in that resignation letter was that on the episode of Ancient Civilizations, where they were deliberately outlining the story of Enki and Enlil, they did not say that God is evil and that Lucifer is God. They were just talking about Enki and Enlil and that exact point. And David Wilcock was being like, that's all bullshit. And I was like, and that was the red flag that went up for me, that I was like, whoa, like, wait a minute. Like, I feel like maybe you're mischaracterizing the story. And to give them the benefit of the doubt, it's a totally complex subject. And you don't want to confuse people into thinking that, but that's exactly how this system is designed. It's designed to confuse people and keep people in ignorance, which is the work of the Gnostic demiurge, which is a demonic, materialistic force who deceives people into thinking that he's God and keeping people wandering around in a hall of mirrors, confused about their true nature, not wanting people to recognize where the source of that mirror is coming from.
Which I feel Yeshua has always done. He never wanted anyone to worship him. He was always pointing back to the heavenly creator, like the creator of all things. So Yeshua may have been the creator of humanity, though there's still an ultimate creator, in my opinion, over everything. It is something that it's funny because I for a while I kind of fell into this whole new age thing, and it was focusing, in my opinion, what it focused on was love, but I didn't really get a lot of focusing on the creator of love. And I feel so strongly about how nature, none of nature is a slave to another. They all work together in harmony. They're designed to work together in harmony, especially left unattended by man. And you know, it's kind of like, I feel like not only did Enlil confuse everyone to be slave race, it's also been a design to convince people that there is no creator of anything, that it is all just this random, you are here by random, you are you know, one of thousands and thousands of different planet-like existences where there's probably tons of people, and why do you even matter? And, you know, just eat your Cheetos and watch the Kardashians. You know, that's how I kind of.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's totally Enlil's work. I feel like that was part of his master plan in terms of the war, the spiritual war. The origin of war itself was between these two factions. And the thing was, like, when Enki had this rebellion and basically entered the garden and was like, look, like you're being controlled, like Morpheus coming to Neo in the Matrix being like, look, you're living in the fucking Matrix. take this red pill and wake up. That was the serpent entering the garden, or Lucifer, which translates to the light bearer, the bringer of the light. And that's, that's another thing I just want to make clear here, is that because when we talk about, like, when most people consider Lucifer, they're thinking the devil. And yes, there are definitely connections to Enki there. But when it comes to the associations of what people say is Lucifer nowadays, like David Wilcock saying that, like, Gaia is a Luciferian network, which is evil, I would differentiate it like this. I would say there is the Gnostic Luciferian belief system, and then there is also the Satanic Cabal. And there's a major difference between that, because the Satanic Cabal is the one that kind of, which we can get into in a whole wider subject, but the Satanic Cabal is like a gang that, in my opinion, operates from this level of deception that the demiurge has really created, which is just to keep people separate, confused, and worshiping a deity that truly is not the creator and is true, like, just wants to be a god, a singular being. And because Luciferianism in its fundamental teachings is that it talks about this whole Enki and Enlil story from a biblical context, is that that Lucifer actually was the one who was trying to help liberate humankind, that sided with humankind during this original sin or this original conflict. But then that, I think, got co-opted by this Satanic Cabal, which I think dates back very long time, but most recently to the Roman Empire. You've got this polytheistic group of people that really worshipped many different quote-unquote gods, not the one true God, which is what the original Christianity was all about. Like what Yeshua was trying to rally people back into, like, the understanding. It's like, no, God's within you. You don't need these priests or these rabbis or whatever, or this government to tell you, you don't need to pay them to get to heaven. Like, heaven's right here and it's in your own consciousness. That was totally opposed by the Roman Empire. And Roman Catholic Church, when people think of that, it's like, oh, that's Christianity. Well, no. The Roman Catholic Church was the Roman government's effort to maintain power by co-opting the growing Christian tradition at the time, the belief in Christ. And that's when the Council of Nicaea was formed, when Emperor Constantine, like, changed the capital of Rome to Constantinople. And it's like, basically, the Roman Catholic Church is really just a Roman polytheistic religion that worships these. Basically, that's the real devil worship. That's like the real satanic or adversarial component. That's like worshiping these giants that cannibalize people, the pedophiles, like all that shit dates back to the Roman Empire, which then snuck into Christianity. So now people, it's like that's why, like, even the Protestant Reformation was like, no, like, why do we need to, like, pay authority to the Pope as being the total source of infallible knowledge to going to heaven, when, like, back then literally the only people that could read the Bible were the priests in Latin, and, like, Roman Protestant Reformation was like, no, let's secretly translate the Bible into the common languages so the common person can read the Bible. And that's when shit started to get crazy, and the Roman Catholic Church was like, we don't fucking like this. We want to be able to control the knowledge. And it's like suddenly all the knowledge gets spread in like one of what would be considered the original printing press, turning the Bible into languages people could understand. So Kara, it's so amazing how complex, dense, and multi-layered this issue is, and how we're living in such a matrix of our beliefs and feelings, and how knowledge and wisdom are so out of alignment in our world, which could totally attribute to why things are so atrocious these days. It's like, we think when we talk about something, it's not really what we're energetically associating with. You know what I mean?
Well, and I like what you just said, energetically associating with, because I think that is exactly what Yeshua's story and Yeshua's life and his message within the Bible really talks about. Who are you associating with? When I was younger, I remember doing this in Montana. It was so wild. And I would go outside anytime, day or night, and I would look up to the stars, and I would extend my arms up to the heavens, up to the sky, and declare which side I was on. And, over the years it's changed. Maybe one year I said love. I'm on the side of love. Though I was just very declarative and very certain that this was crucial that I do. And I feel like that is something that not many people do in their lifetime. And just the other day I was watching this movie, and I turned on the TV to go to, like, there's a Hawaiian station music and I just love it. So, but I wasn't on that station. So I turned on the TV and all of a sudden this movie popped up. I'll have to look up what it was. I'd never seen it before. It was kind of new. Anyway, at that exact moment it said, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for everything. And it's so, so, so true in your life. If you do not stand for a certain side, you will be on the opposition of the love side. I just am so certain about this now. And it's so important to declare which side you're on every single day, in my opinion. And again, I really want to highlight that it's not like, in my opinion, I sense that this is the most epic story of understanding the knowledge of good and evil. Like, transcends anything Shakespeare could have ever done. This story of a journey that we're on to realize that the love of war, the love of hate, the love of fear, the love of separation is so diabolical and so horrendous and so ugly, that every eye shall see the glory of beauty, the glory of love, the glory of nature, the glory of creation, the glory of building. We've gotten into I was talking to a very dear engineer, and he led me to really start to see this. The way the current world is, they have a love of a death culture. There's like death culture everywhere. So, and to that comment, I just feel that's why it's so important for people like you and I, podcasts like this, all different types of mediums, be a source of light, be a source of love, be a source of life. Because in my opinion, we're here to bring life culture. That's one of the things that really stood out to me in the story of Yeshua. He said, I came to bring life, and life more abundantly. What is that? Abundant life. I mean, can we even imagine that in this current day and age? So that's my 2 cents.
Well, I love your 2 cents. I see that as like totally in a jubilee of an economy sense, that 2 cents is turned into $2 gazillion. So like, and I want, like, one of the things you said there that I totally resonate with, it's like with making a stand, like when you look up and have to choose a side, and like we're living in a world of duality and polarity, and there's like, you could look at God and devil, or positive and negative, and light and dark, and all these things, and it's like, then there's love and fear. And out of all these things, I mean, a lot of these words are like, one person, when they think of love, it could be the most wonderful thing. But if you say love to another person, they'll be like, they'll be reminded of a terrible relationship or something. And they'll be just like, I don't want to think about love. So it's like, everything is subjective, especially the words like God and devil in context of the Enki and Enlil story. It's like, wow, talk about opening a can of worms. Like, wait a minute, God is the devil and the devil is God. Like, wait, what the fuck does it all mean? But it's like, back to the point of making a declaration and taking a stand for something. I think the most simple way of like bypassing all of that subjective, stigmatic, like linguistic stuff is love and fear, because love is everything. Love is representative of the creation in every form. There is, like, despite that one person that may like think of love and have bad associations with it, let's say, In general, love is what is creation all about. Like love is is growth, and fear is protection. And yes, fear, we need to protect ourselves at time, but if you had to, it's like, I think out of all those different like light, positive and negative, because positive and negative, it's like, let's look at a battery. Which side of the battery will you stand for?
And I love that you're touching on this, because this is what I'm hearing. God created polarity. God created negative and positive. God created love and fear. What I sense, what you and I are diving into also, is this story of not seeing God as the positive, and Lucifer as the negative, or Enlil as the negative, and Enki as the positive. Seeing that positive and negative are both created by the one creator, and also seeing that, just like you said, there's a group of individuals, and I call them individuals because I don't exactly know what they are. A group of individuals.
A good legal way of putting it.
Yes, I'm very politically correct. I do not know what they are. A group of individuals that hate other things, and that want to destroy, and are addicted to death culture. Because I'm not saying that God, or that the great creator, prime creator, didn't create death. What I'm saying is there is a season of things. There's a time and a place for things. And when I look out into the world, and truly coming out here to South Dakota and getting such a fresh perspective of nature again, in its purity, and its glory, and its goodness, and its grace, and couple that with, I'm seeing gold mines, and I'm seeing, using trees for toilet paper as opposed to hemp. We have technology now to be taking care of the environment, to be taking care of people, to be taking care of ourselves and our inside and outside. The fact that we're not doing it, and when you wake up and you really do dive deep and you take that red pill, you see that there's a group of people who just really are stubborn and low frequency. And, just like you said, love Cheney. We need to love Dick Cheney. We need to love everyone. I think the way through this is for us to truly love our enemy, and truly pray for our enemy, and speak words of affirmation, and speak words of power, and speak into existence what we know we can do with this place. Because remember, in the story of the Garden of Eden, the prime creator told Adam and Eve to take dominion over their environment. Now, that's not to say you take like dominion and you make it a servant or a slave. Dominion is just this like caretaking word. And I'm excited for us to add in part of our A2K going forward. I would love to have little segments where we really go into the etymology of words, so that people really start understanding lexicon and what we're saying, and using words appropriately, because what we say takes place. Just like Uncle Bruce taught us about the cell membrane. It is the gates and channels, and constantly our cells, transmitters and receivers, are either transmitting or receiving frequency. And I fully believe that taking dominion over your environment is radiating a frequency that is like the prime creator, because I fully believe we were made in the image of the prime creator. This is why we love to create, why we love to build, why we love to develop things. At the core of everyone's being is truly that. And to deny that is why we are slaves right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the words and the lexicon they're symbols. They're a form of symbols, which are so the world that we live in. Like Native American and other indigenous cultures around the world most unanimously would decree that we don't really own anything in this world, that we are here as a gift or a present, and like we don't really have anything to give per se. But in my understanding, the one thing that we do actually own, or we can take ownership if we so decide to, is our story. It's the symbols and how we use the symbols. So it's like, depending on how we use the symbols, which is a technology, we can make the world one way, or we can make the world a different way. And a good example of this and how symbols can be used one way or the other, and especially with like the misunderstandings of the symbols, and to a layperson just looking at a particular symbol and thinking based on what other people say, and also just the associations and history of what it means, we could totally misinterpret it and be kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. And the best example of this is the pentagram. Now, the pentagram, the five-pointed star, a lot of times is associated with satanic worship. That this like the movie American Werewolf in London. They show up in a bar and they see a pentagram on the wall. They're like, oh, it's a pentagram. These people are like witches and they're devil worshippers. And
you know what? I just have to really interject something really quick. How genius of a force to use something so powerful as, God created the geometry. So, or the prime creator created geometry. So
yeah,
I just wanted to interject that.
Oh yeah, no, and it's like, and again, it's a symbol that is used against us. And I think it's the best example, because a lot of times a pentagram is looked at as a satanic or a Baphomet symbol. Like if you look at, let's say, reversing a symbol, put a pentagram upside down, you got the two horns on the top, and they think it's.
Well, isn't that usually the way that they use it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But if you let's just look at it like traditional, like right side up pentagram with the star, one star on the top. The pentagram conveniently is the shape of the human body, with the head.
Yeah, no, it's so gorgeous.
And the legs. It's like, everyone talks about the four elements, but then there's the movie The Fifth Element. What's the fifth element? Some may say it's spirit. It's the human element. It's the element of consciousness that overrides all of the material elements of air, water, fire, and earth, right? So the pentagram in itself is actually a beautiful symbol. It's who we are. It's physiologically, our human hologram cell biology forms in this form. But just to backtrack to David Wilcock for a second, in his most recent blog that he posted, going on about how the Luciferian agenda is evil, and Gaia is a Luciferian organization, and they put it.
This was after his resignation letter.
This was right before his like a couple days.
Oh,
before.
right before. Wow.
And he showed. Did you see the movie Ready Player One?
I have not yet.
Okay, so I thought it was a really cool movie. Not a great movie, but visually spectacular. But in David's blog that he posted, which is on his website right now, the most recent one, he goes on this whole thing, like saying how, like, because he keeps talking about the Luciferian agenda is evil, and that everything in the movies is just this evil religion of satanic people, interchangeably calling them Luciferians. And then he shows in Ready Player One how certain characters are wearing shirts with pentagrams on them, and he's like, see? Evidence of a satanic cabal. Look at all the pentagrams.
Wait, so were the pentagrams upside down?
No, they were not.
And this is one area where I'm so excited to dive into. I think the A2K definitely should have one whole segment where we just talk about movies, because to just label a movie off of a geometric pattern or a shape is not truly present. For so long in my life, I would take these photos of myself, I did these self-portraits of myself, like emitting, I pictured myself emitting a love pattern from my heart, and I would put my hands up in the sign language symbol for I love you. And that's the same as the bullhorns, yes, which also individuals claim as very evil and sign. But my 2 cents on this whole subject is that And truly, by the way, Alex, I do have to say, I stand against the Luciferian agenda, whether it be in corporation, whether it be in church, whether it be in government. I am absolutely making that declaration. What I fully believe is that Lucifer, or for whatever Enlil, whatever name you wanted to name this individual who created the first sin, in my mind, like how I am feeling things are, is hijacking symbols and signs, because there are many hand symbols that are very important to do, because God created the hand in these amazing structures of energy. Definitely comes out of hands. He's just hijacking them, because that means if I ever do the I love you symbol in sign language, which, how funny, in sign language, I love you, and then here it is, if you accidentally do it, you're of the devil.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think individuals need to take signs and symbols like that with a grain of salt. One of the things that my mother has taught me forever is, and in the Bible, it's called judge them by the fruits of their labor. And I don't want to use the word judge, so I'd rather say observe them, and then, discern whether or not you want to be associated with this.
Yeah.
But it's by the fruits of individuals' labors, corporations, individuals, churches, governments, groups. I don't care who you are, red, yellow, or what is it? Red and yellow, black and white. Yeah, I don't care if you're red and yellow, black or white, or tan, or anything like that. Whether you're a trans, or you call yourself a different gender, I do not care about that. What I care about is, are you on the side of life, or are you on the side of it's hard to say death, because
It's like it's like love and fear, I think. I mean, it's like,
maybe we should
like,
just say love. Are you on the side of love, or are you on the side of fear?
Yeah, because we worship that. And I want to also just point out, because like what you were just saying, it's like standing against the Luciferian agenda. Like, where you're coming from energetically, I completely agree with you. We're on the same page with that. But in terms of the like actual usage of those words, and I'm weary about saying, even saying these words, because they're so like stigmatized and contextualized. Like, we don't understand the symbol. It's hard to really, it opens up too many questions, whereas we're trying to get solutions here. But my real, like, the way I would word it, in the same exact meaning of what you're saying, is that I'm against the satanic agenda, because like you had said, the satanic agenda ultimately means the adversarial agenda. And and linguistically, Lucifer itself, regardless of the biblical context of the archangel Lucifer and all that, Lucifer technically means the light bearer and the bringer of knowledge. And
I just want to point out for one moment why I do say this, because otherwise, and truly, Alex, wouldn't it be so cool if we just dove into the etymology of both Lucifer, Yeshua, dive into El God. I think that should be definitely a part of one of our shows we do.
Absolutely.
Why I say Luciferianism, and why I'm so, now I do see definitely light bearer when he was, because Lucifer was the prince of sound as well. He was like God's left-hand man, and I really, like, I need one of those zappers every time I say God. I want one of those zappers, because
it's okay. It's totally okay.
I do not like the word God. It's a Germanic word. It doesn't even make sense. I'm going to really get keen on this. Prime creator is who I see. Prime creator, and I really do say the prime creator. The creator of ones and zeros, all that is.
Yeah.
The reason why, so I've been reading this book, and I highly recommend it, Alex. It's called The Great Controversy. The reason why I'm in tech now. I'm building my own software for veterans, and what I see happening in technology, Alex, is, if I didn't have the prime creator in my life so much, I tell you what, and truly, when I wasn't praying to the Prime Creator and really connecting to the Prime Creator, I was afraid, because the slippery slope that we're on with technology right now is so dangerous. And the reason why I see, I feel like Satan is a little bit actually Lucifer's son. Why I see Lucifer, because what has happened in technology is so anti-life and so far away from where nature is, because I believe nature and technology can exist, by the way. At the moment, though, the waste that technology is creating and the quickness of which people are like, oh, I need a new TV, I need a new TV, I need a new TV. Like every single time a new version comes out, people are getting a new TV and getting the old one out. Well, the human population must understand that that's a trickle-down effect that is very scary, because the e-waste centers in Agbogbloshie in Africa are so horrific. They're causing so much disease, so much destruction. And they're kids as young as like 7 and 8 who are taking apart old technology and burning rubber. And so this isn't just like, oh, well, it's just Agbogbloshie. Let's, okay, over in, Seattle, Washington, we're fine. Everyone's fine. No, this is something that even it goes, air does not stay in one country.
No, of course not.
And, and at the rate at which Apple is creating new phones and new products because they want to stay at $1 trillion evaluation, to me is mind-blowing, because the actual value of which humans are contributing to this planet is slim to nil.
Yeah. It's almost like the way the technology is going right now is that technology is based on a consumption model of just constantly taking but not giving back. And the thing is, like Uncle Bruce has laid out very clearly about how technology is good, that the cells created technology in order for us to live. Like the liver or the brain or the heart or the skin. All of these are technologies that the cells created in order to create a superorganism to be able to process and exist on a higher level. So technology in that sense is good, but the difference between that type of technology by the cells versus the technology us as human cells are using right now is that the cells are using technology in a cooperative, balanced state of give and receive. So it's not just about taking, it's about giving. It's about producing. The brain is not just there for the cell's purpose. The brain is there for the greater purpose of all the cells to be, and even for something even bigger. Like a cell in the brain is there doing its job so that Kara's consciousness can even come to be. So it's like, as opposed to our technology, like all of this stuff, it's about consumer level stuff. How much can we take? And it's totally out of balance. So again, it's like technology can be good if used in a truly free state. And in my opinion, the real definition of freedom is not about you can do or take whatever you want. The real definition of freedom is being able to live in a balanced state of harmony with nature and with
100%, 100%. What I love what you're saying is exactly why I am so in love with Yeshua, because I really do feel his life was exemplary of a free life. Think of, and again, what you were saying about technology of the human body. This whole thing is technology, but it's this prime creator technology where, like, when our skin cells fall to the ground, guess what? They break down and are reabsorbed by the earth. And the earth actually loves it because they're getting our minerals. This whole system is designed to work within itself where there's no real waste, and waste doesn't exist. And in this world, because it is designed to not be free, we have waste.
Yeah. And that's the world of the demiurge. It's like, and it's like, even though it's like to even go beyond the differentiation or the duality or the different interpretations of what Lucifer or Satan is. It's like I would even go as far as to say it's like what I'm opposed to, what I walk away from is the force of the demiurge, which is a force of material possession, worshiping matter separate from spirit, kicking spirit out of the equation altogether, trying to snuff out any sort of sense of awareness, keeping people in the dark, separate. That's really like the true, let's just say, enemy in this situation. And I think it's like we could both agree that depending on who you talk to, the context of what you're talking about, and all that, and the environment, it's like Lucifer and Satan could be totally like, it's like the devil and the angel on your shoulders. Ironically, it's always getting broken down and separated. Like the even the word Satan on a positive word, it's like could be Saturn. Saturn is a planet that in astrology represents higher learning, maturity. It's like the great grandfather of the solar system. So in that sense, it's like Satan. Like, well, Saturn, it's like, it's like Saturn's a pretty important planet. It's like, but it's like, again, it's just another testament to the fact that we're buried in a lexicon of words that we're not really sure of the meaning of, we're operating from, and not knowing what we're really talking about.
Well, also, how do we know that the Roman Catholic Church didn't create the word Satan so it would attach to Saturn?
Yeah, well, it's like
Saturday.
Yeah, and exactly, and it's well, again, it's like that. I want to bring this up. I was thinking about this earlier after we had talked on the phone, but in terms of like identifying like where the enemy is, because this is something that really triggered me, like listening to David Wilcock go on about saying that Gaia is a like Luciferian evil organization, which in my opinion, I'm not in that camp of. I don't see it that way. I think that there's a more to that story than maybe we're reading in the resignation letter. And based on the people that I know that work at Gaia and have worked with Gaia, I don't say I know for sure, but I definitely am skeptical of like saying that Gaia Network is a satanic or an evil organization. But yeah, something I was thinking about before, and because it made me go on this path of Gnosticism and like, where is the true enemy? Led me back to looking at what the demiurge is and this whole thing, and the adversary, let's just say. It made me think of a video I saw on YouTube, and you probably have seen this before, and if not, you definitely should check it out. But it's of a particular type of octopus that is able to camouflage itself. Have you seen this video?
Yeah, the mimic octopus.
Yeah, the one, it's like you're down underwater and it looks like you're staring at a piece of coral, but then all of a sudden it moves.
It can transform into like 13 different shapes to
like whatever it's at, like whatever environment it's in, it can totally just like sit there and just like chameleon style blend into its environment and make it look like it's something else that it's really not. But
well, it actually used to be my spirit animal, so that's actually really funny that you mentioned that.
Oh yeah. And it's nothing against the octopus in itself, but symbolically in terms of like what it's doing in its action. It's like when it comes to like, reason why I brought this up, it's like with like the Roman Catholic Church and the Roman Empire and the worship of gods like Moloch and the sacrifice of humans and like worship, like pedophilia and all this like horrible stuff. It's like these people have infiltrated, and back to even gods of Eden. Like the story of Enki and Enlil, and how Enlil ultimately infiltrated with his forces to the story of Egypt to bastardize and defame any sort of understanding of knowledge and what itself is, and like to really ruin the credibility of what Enki was trying to do. So like the mystery schools are the maverick religions, as in the gods of Eden, how William Bramley put it. It's like this octopus has infiltrated all of these like basically knowledge schools to take control of the situation. They've been a consistent force of trying, like the demiurge, which is to keep people in the dark and all that.
And what you're saying, I even hear like the Prime Creator telling me, let's differentiate the difference between wisdom schools and Lucifer's knowledge, because I actually have come to believe that I would rather have wisdom over knowledge. And to me, wisdom over knowledge is where you tap into the prime creator. Every human born with a soul, I know we need to start like differentiating this now. Every human born with a soul has a connection to the prime creator. And as you increase that connection, however it looks to you, you know, some people, I just saw the other day a documentary on longboarding downhill. And, you know, these people have to be in such meditation. To me, you know, that might be their way of accessing the prime creator. So it looks so different to every single person. And you cannot copy another person's connection to the prime creator. You have to have your own connection to the prime creator. And to me, that is where wisdom comes from. And I would much rather have wisdom over knowledge any day.
Yeah.
Because knowledge is just this, like, you know, rote memorization, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's this makes me think of the Kabbalah, the tree of life science, and the Hebrew understanding of the tree of life. And there's a whole YouTube series by this guy. I'll have to send you a link to it, but he explains a lot of the Kabbalah science. And there's this thing where he talks about the needs of creation. And it's like, because we're all these receivers, essentially, like in Kabbalah understanding. We're all receiving. All of our senses are there to receive some sort of information, whether it's our eyes with light, or our ears with sound, or our skin with sensation. Any of these senses, they're all receiving, like a cup being filled with liquid. And the first level of needs is all about food, water, and shelter, and like reproduction. Once you have those needs met, you can basically expand your cup to receive more. The next level of receiving comes into wealth or resources. So now that you can reproduce and you have all the stuff you need, now you want to be able to control the things that you need. So you don't have to be constantly looking for shelter, or constantly looking for food, or constantly looking for a mate. It's like then being able to lock that down, basically. And then once you have that need fulfilled, your cup expands and your need to receive expands. The next level is power. So that is like to be able to control the resources altogether, like to be able to influence how other people receive on the preceding needs. Now the fourth need, this is where why I brought it up. The fourth need in this, like once you've got your resource, once you've got your food, water, reproduction met, your resources met, and then you've got your power met, the next need is knowledge. Now this is when it gets a little kooky, because knowledge is a vortex. Knowledge is there is knowledge that it's like basically awareness, and you can never have like enough awareness. There's awareness. There's always going to be more awareness. The grass is always going to be greener on the other side kind of story. And the thing is that like, this is where the saying knowledge is power comes from, because that knowledge supersedes all of the other needs to the point where, let's say you had the knowledge of being able to get your food, water, or your nourishment from the sun or through meditation. That knowledge bypasses and overrides your need to eat apples to survive. So knowledge is like the true power. But the thing is like we've been on this quest or this journey in this story here, this narrative of getting a need, fulfilling it, and then expanding your cup so you can receive more, and then doing that and keep going. But then once you get to knowledge, this is where it gets weird, because your cup will never be filled. It's like you'll always be building up your cup, and then there'll always be more knowledge. And then it gets to a point where it's like, imagine you're building a cup out of Play-Doh, and you're like, you've only got so much Play-Doh, and you keep like building up this cup a little bit more. And then when you get to knowledge, it gets to a certain point where you don't have any more Play-Doh, and you can't actually like fill that need anymore. So it becomes a really like scary place, because knowledge, as powerful as it can make you, is a trap, because now it's like, well, like I got everything I thought I wanted or I thought I needed, but I still feel like I need to go on further. But where in the fuck is that? This is where the fifth need comes in. Now, this is a need that is not already present. And this is all Kabbalah science, or the Kabbalah understanding of needs of creation and everything. So once you get to this fifth need, you have to develop a need that was not there in the first place. Now, all of the other needs were personal needs in order to survive, basically. And they're all things that suit your own personal thing, needs that were already there, like basically cups or receptors that were already on your cells that you need to get fulfilled. But then when you get to the fifth one, you at some point or another, you have to make a choice of creating a new need that was not there in the first place. And in Kabbalah, there's a term called becoming similar in form to the creator. Because in the Kabbalah, it breaks down in like what science would say is cause and effect. Or in the Kabbalah, you have the creator and the creature. The creator and the thing that the creator creates. But these are part of a dichotomy. They're part of the whole. Like we were saying before, there's the positive and negative. It's a battery. It's like we technically, like they would say, we cannot create anything new that was already here. We're almost like in a simulation of creation. Like we can like imagine we're creating things, but really we're just kind of fulfilling a program of needs that were already there. So once you get to that point, it's like you have to create a new need. This is where it's like you have to get creative. For the first time in this whole hierarchy of needs, you have to get creative and make something new that wasn't there. And the real trick or the real understanding with the Kabbalah is to create a need that's not for you. It's for something else that's beyond you. And this is what means to become similar in form to the creator, because the real creator, the true creator, the one infinite love consciousness is a bestowing, universal, unconditional love force that just gives and gives and gives. And as by definition, as human beings, we need to constantly take in order to live. But when you get to this point, it's like you start to create a filter or a lens, or in the Kabbalah, they call it a tiny spot. You have to find a tiny spot in your heart, which symbolically the heart represents the mass total of all of your needs, all of your feelings. You need to create a tiny spot within all of those needs. It's a new need, like create a new imaginary cup that can be filled by only helping other people or by helping the creator, by serving, simply by serving. And this is where you graduate in Kabbalah to the next level, where now you can become similar in form to the creator. And actually, this is like why when you help somebody, when you truly help somebody, and as a reaction, you feel good, like when you help somebody, this is where it comes from. Because when you get into that true state of serving others, because the whole path up to this point was serving yourself. But once you get to this point where you decide to serve others, then you start to feel good. And now it's not even about the whole like chess game of giving and receiving anymore. Now it's about living more and more in harmony. It's like that's the point of transcendence, where we can then become more harmony with the creator. So it's like that, like the only reason I brought that up, just to bring it full circle, Kara, was like about how would rather choose wisdom over knowledge. Ultimately, that's what this is all about. It's like you get on this path, you go down, and it's like eventually that's where it comes down to. It's all about wisdom. It's all about the bestowing and serving of others, but you can't just poo-poo and throw the baby out the bathwater by like saying, fuck the path of serving yourself. Like we were saying before, if you're on an airplane, you got to help the other, you got to help put the mask on yourself first before you take care of other people. Well, on a much more deeper spiritual way, that's the progression of this understanding. So instead of just being told or given knowledge on all of this, like here, it's the knowledge of serving others. No, it's about walking down the path, learning how to take care of yourself, and making the choice on your own accord to serve others. And I think that's really where wisdom lives.
I completely agree. And I was just so intently listening because it's so key, and it has been so integral in my life, where I've gone in the startup world as an entrepreneur. I was just the other day, I just had a kind of a download, and I realized that my business model is give. And on the back end, we like to do it cheerfully giving, getting so excited about getting, not because you're going to get something, just because that is what life does. Look at what the trees do. Look at what the flowers do. Look at what bees do. I mean, everything in this planet just gives and gives and gives. And of course they receive. The other side of receiving, trees need nutrients, trees need light, but they don't have to push and shove and, push another tree down to get the nutrients that they need. They just give freely and they receive freely. And it is such a balance in what I see, the yin and the yang. just to quickly talk about Kabbalah, which it's so funny because at one point during my journey, I got deep into mysticism and the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life. And, even, I know that they wear a red string around their wrist, but I was so like, rambunctious and unique that I decided I was going to wear a red string around my neck. Which is actually really funny that I would choose to do that given what I feel the Prime Creator just told me about Kabbalah. Why I'm just kind of like, I did it for a little while because I was so excited about the Tree of Life, so excited about their symbolism, and though drifted away from it. Now I actually wear a purple thread. It's like I created a thread around my wrist to represent the violet flame, which I feel feels a step up from red. Anyway, my point is, I just shied away from it. I wasn't sure why. It was like kind of weird because I was really into it at one point. And what you just said actually is so crucial. And I'm so excited we're talking about this because I actually now I'm seeing things like so much differently about inverted symbols. We were just talking about the pentagram. Here's another inverted symbol, with the church which Peter built, which was based on Yeshua, which I think was a little bit skewed. He was crucified on an upside down cross because he didn't want to be.
I was just thinking that as you were saying that. Yep.
So
the tarot cards.
Exactly. And so something I feel like maybe the Cabal might just have flipped it around because Alex, one thing I can say, and you've known me for 11 years, one thing I can say about me that's different right now, because for the last, I don't know how many years, I was going after my needs that way. And the Prime Creator flipped me. I had a series of events, the circumstances that happened in my life, and made me realize that I was actually living backwards. When you first go after your spiritual need of this love affair that you have with the Prime Creator, and everyone has that, everyone does. When you go after that first, it's like when Yeshua said, seek after the kingdom of heaven first, and all things will be added unto you. So I actually feel like Yeshua flipped it and that's what I feel like I've been doing, and why I feel like my actual needs, the best things for me, are being met, because I literally could care less about my water or my food or my shelter. Now, granted, we all need this, and I'm not advocating someone, go off into the wilderness. However, think, of all the prophets and even the Bible, how many went off into the wilderness, did not care about their needs being met, and were fed by ravens? I mean, think of Elijah. He went out into the wilderness, and God provided his needs through ravens. And I feel like that is so crucial in this world today, because our needs can be met we can order on Grubhub, we can order Amazon, and we can order on Targets, delivered the second day. We have water on demand. And I'm not talking about all nations, because many people don't even have running water. And what I'm saying is that I feel like a lot of the first world nations have just gotten into this consumerism. We can have anything anytime we want. I mean, I can even get sushi in the middle of the night, for crying out loud, which is, amazing. It may not be good sushi, but, I mean, like, it just is the point of that perhaps Kabbalah was just tweaked a little bit by instead of using, God or Lucifer, let's just say the adversary flipped it. And actually the way we need to be going after is going after that connection with our Prime Creator, that source within us that beats our heart, that keeps us alive. And then all things will be added unto us. We don't even have to worry about our needs or our purpose or our mission at that point, because it just unfolds.
Exactly. It becomes an automatic process.
Yeah, just like the way trees work.
Yeah, and it's in Native American tradition, the trees. I mean, obviously, like, well, maybe not obviously for a lot of people, but according to most indigenous cultures, everything has spirit. Everything is alive. The earth is
Indeed.
alive. Everything within the atoms, the consciousness, the light itself is conscious. So the trees are considered to be a nation, and they are called the one-legged people, or the one-legged nation. And they are the most solid beings that literally provide the oxygen for our existence. And they simultaneously exist in the world above and the world below at the same time. And it takes, and they live, like, if you were to do a time-lapse video of a redwood tree next to humanity, humanity would be like a blur, if anything, and the tree would just be sitting there growing the whole time. And even there's the demonstration of the cycles of the seasons, with the growth, the decay, the hibernation, and the rebirth, and the flourishing, and so on and so forth. It's really amazing how trees are they're like one of the greatest teachers. Even with when I do the Sundance with the Cree in Canada, the going on this fast with no food or water for 4 days. The first 2 years I did this, I will be honest, it was very, very difficult. Not the food part, really it was the water part, not being able to drink water while like praying and dancing, and not like pretty much staying in one place for 4 days with no water was very, very hard. But that was because I jumped right into it, and because of a calling I had, a number of different reasons. But to fast track to this past year when I did the Sundance, and having a much more sense of being prepared and understanding why I'm there, and putting the time in and the effort. And also the biggest thing for me was at the Sundance, I went up to somebody and I told them, like, I asked them, I gave them some tobacco, and that's a tool of barter. It's not like tobacco to smoke necessarily, but it's like a tool that the creator, according to most indigenous cultures in America, say that the creator gave people tobacco as a means, like said, you can use tobacco as a means to like offer something. Because if you want something, if you want to take something, or you want to learn something in indigenous culture, you need to give something. And that's again a representation of that balance of giving and receiving. The true freedom of wisdom comes from that. If you want something, you need to give something. You got to like remove some of the fluid from your cup so you can receive in order to receive. So I gave somebody tobacco, and I said, hey, I'm going to give you this tobacco. And what I asked is if you could just eat and drink for me while I'm in the Sundance. So I'm not going to be able to drink water, but while I'm in there, when you're doing your business outside the ceremony, when you're drinking your own water, just take this tobacco and drink some water for me. Just drink some water for me. And it's again back to the whole Kabbalistic thing of doing something, having a need fulfilled, like fulfilling your cup for someone else. So I just simply asked somebody, I'm like, would you drink water for me while I was in there? And they said, yes, of course. And I was amazed with how strong I was in that. And I was not thirsty at all the whole time. Like there were maybe a few points at the end where I started to feel like I was thirsty, but nowhere near the type of like need for water that I had when I was first doing the Sundance a couple of years ago. So again, back to this thing, it's like once you get in tune and in the frequency of the infinite creator, and it bypasses all of the other needs that you have. That's like where the wisdom of praying comes from. And and what's great about the time we're living in right now, Kara, is that modern science is coming back full circle in a spirally kind of way to the same exact story that the indigenous cultures around the world have been saying the whole time. There's this great, and this has happened at various points throughout human history, where the world of matter and the world of spirit, or the cultures of matter and matter of spirit, they kind of converged for a moment, and things were like really great opportunities happened. It was like a time for healing, or a time for independence, or a time for knowledge, like the Renaissance. The Renaissance came right after the Dark Ages. It was like we've gone through these ups and downs crossing this midline, but anytime we're in that midline, there's magic that happens, because magic, science on a certain level can totally appear like magic. But then if you understand the science, the magic isn't magic, but even on that level, it's still miraculous. So it's that like we talk about ones and zeros, but if you take a 0 and you put a 1 through it, that's the symbol for the golden ratio. That's the word for phi or phi. That's the spiral. The golden spiral is the 1 and the 0 together. And that's like ultimately, I think, the best demonstration of what the creator in our sense of the understanding is really all about. And with all the stuff going on, it's like access to knowledge. It's great. Let's get knowledge, but let's start let's build a foundation of wisdom, and then use knowledge to build a really cool house. But the foundation is the wisdom. I think that's going to be a hallmark of the new paradigm.
Truth, 100% truth, Alex. And I'm just, like every single conversation we ever have, I always feel elevated and closer to my connection to source, because even I fully believe our relationships are designed to bring us closer to source, not farther away. And I just really applaud this whole journey that we've been on, that has been access to wisdom. And
access to wisdom. Wow, that's a pole shift right there. I like that.
Yeah. We were on an A2K journey, and it was like almost that we had, to prove ourselves that we weren't going to abuse knowledge, which I fully believe many individuals on this plane have been abusing knowledge. And that's when wisdom comes, and all knowledge will be added unto thee. Because, truly seek after the kingdom of heaven first, 100%, which is the kingdom of within. And all things will be added unto you. And that includes knowledge. So cheers to this journey, Alex, and our dedication and commitment and tenacity to the light. Because I know for myself, and I speak for myself, I have absolutely been tested by the adversary many, many times. To seek after money or to seek after knowledge. I think that's where it comes in. It's access to knowledge or access to resources or access to wisdom, not seeking after wisdom, seeking after money, seeking after, whatever. It was us seeking after the greatest thing that ever existed, which is the source of all that is. And truly, Alex, thank you for encouraging me on this journey. I would not be here without it.
I return the same truth to you, Kara. This is such a wonderful. We've had such a wonderful conversation, which has been it's had stop and go points many times, but ultimately to keep thematically with our understanding and all of the mystical stuff we've been going in. It's like we've been having a great, wonderful conversation that has truly uplifted and inspired me. I always feel uplifted every time we have conversations and allowing each other to go on our paths and having these experiences, because in order to really have wisdom, to truly attain wisdom, you have to have experiences, and in order to have those experiences, you have to be going down a path and make decisions, whether it's one way or the other way. And that's the definition of what the knowledge of the tree of knowledge and good and evil is. It's like, symbolically, it's like you've reached a fork in the road, and you can go one way or the other way. The knowledge that one way may lead this way, and the other way may lead the other way. And it's only through trial and error. It's only by actually just be willing to go down this path, and by accumulating a mass of experiences of knowing what that road is or what the other road is, or forging new roads, taking a new road, forging other roads. Like that's the road to knowledge. That's the road of knowledge. But it's really ultimately the end goal is wisdom, and you've having conversations with you've definitely inspired that wisdom. And I think it's really cool that we continue these conversations as we will. I'm totally assuredly, affirmatively, presently accepting of and totally happy about. This is a really cool conversation. I know that, especially like even this one, just this recording one, I'll post it on YouTube. I'll put a little picture screenshot of it, and we can maybe collaborate on something to put on, so we can have something for
Well, you know, we have the amazing A2K logo. That could be our very first thumbnail.
Yeah, I believe I still have that somewhere. If not, I think I still
I
get.
know it's not still on my Facebook, so if you
Yeah.
need it, I can send it to you.
Yeah. Send it over to me, and I'll put that as the screenshot over.
Yeah, that'll be our official first screenshot. You know, and I what I hear the Prime creator telling me right now is that now is the time. Truly, we have matured so much in our relationship with all that is. I really hear it in you, and I really hear it myself, and I'm so excited. Secondary, I hear the Prime creator saying it is doing a disservice to not share these conversations, because it sparks so much interest in researching, I'm sure, for people, and also sparks interest in going after their own access to wisdom, access to divine knowledge, and, you know, connecting within them this excitement for declaring which side that they're on. Because, you know, one of the things that I really see that's happening in this world is we're in a spiritual battle, and it's like a spiritual battle for souls. And the Prime creator believes all souls are important. All souls. It's like, you know, all dogs go to heaven. I feel like all souls go to heaven. And
Yes.
And I feel like that's in my, like, what I see on my side, that's A2K's mission.
Yeah, it is. It totally is. It's so interesting to see how things come full circle, and even upon doing this cast right here, this wisdom cast, so to speak. We've always
Ooh, I like that. I love that.
Wisdom cast. Maybe we should make that a thing.
I think that's our thing.
I think that's our thing. You know, and it's funny because, like, we totally are consistent and persistent with our intention, and the intention, like, even in a microcosm within a microcosm of planning this years in advance, this particular conversation we're having right now. It's like, when we do the first talk, we're going to talk about Gods of Eden. We're going to talk about Enki and Enlil. We're going to talk about this. And it's so funny because we did exactly that. Yeah. But we have changed. We have both evolved our understanding of what this creation is all about to such an extent that like, the way we're talking about this is like, when we planned it before, like, let's say, yeah, we got to do this. It's like, it would have never have come out the way that it has come out just now.
Totally.
And it's so great. This makes perfect sense.
Yeah, like the day that, I mean, remember, we were friends for quite some time before we started talking about A2K. And yeah, the first time we started talking about A2K, I did not have this connection that I do today with Prime Creator. Also, I did not have the experience of the actual planet. I've learned so much in the ups and downs and the roller coaster I've been on. And yeah, I'm so excited, Alex, and so excited for A2K, and so excited for the listeners, because this is one that also doesn't push opinion or push agenda or push propaganda. It's very transparent, that we just desire to reignite the spark within everyone that is connected to the kingdom of heaven, the Prime creator, whatever you want to call it, this existence that is of all life, and get them excited on their journey, because this is not a Kara journey for everyone. This is not an Alex journey for everyone. This is a Sam, Sam, like,
Sam just
Donna, Benjamin.
Sam and Donna both just heard that just now, and they're like, "Holy shit, that's me! I knew it."
I'm talking to you guys.
Sam,
It's such a custom journey, and that is what's crucial in access to wisdom.
It is. It totally is. It's great. and it's so important. It makes me, I got a huge smile across my face right now because a lot of the knowledge that we've accumulated over the years, the things that we've taken and things that we've digested and processed, but at the same time we've come full circle to the. It's like at some point when we were having this conversation, it made me think of the hero's journey in literature. The Joseph Campbell, Hero with a Thousand Faces. So it's like, why is it that so many stories and movies and books and everything have like almost a formula to them? Like, is this, who created this formula? What is this formula? The formula is the story of everything embedded within everything. So it's that story of having an intention and delving into this world and going on a journey, losing yourself, having revelations, being guided, throwing away the guidance, learning new things, and almost like forgetting what even brought you on this journey in the first place. And then it's in that moment of like in the hero journey where you descend to complete darkness and you almost like give up. There's that moment where you like let go and surrender yourself to this journey. Then it's at that moment the next piece of the puzzle arises. But the only difference at this point is that instead of going on a path straight forward, the path leads you on a journey back, a journey back to where you came from with a new perspective. And then once you get to the top, that's in the tarot card, the classic hero's journey. You start off as the fool jumping off a cliff. To others, you seem like a fool, like, wow, you just jumped off a cliff not knowing what's out there. But then you go on this massive journey of exploration. You learn and you forget and you all the stuff. And then you come back and you're the fool again. But this time it's like you see the fool from a different perspective. The fool was not stupid or like, you know, ill-informed. The fool was just living in a state of constant bliss and now. And I just want to make another recommendation. I want you to see the movie Christopher Robin in theaters with Winnie the Pooh if you can, because Winnie the Pooh is totally that fool. He's just like a simple little guy that just wants to be happy and like lives and wanders and meanders around, wants to find honey, but is full of so much wisdom, which is the whole thing that I was trying to say. It's like the fool in the beginning seems foolish. Why would you jump off that cliff? But the reason, upon going on this journey and coming back, you realize that fool was just wise. He knew that he knew nothing, and that was the journey of just going on this path of being. It's like you go and you want to do things, but really it was like you didn't have to do anything at all because you were being. A tree.
Well, that's exactly what Yeshua says when he says the only children can enter the kingdom of heaven. And children are typically perceived as foolish. When in reality, no, they're the wisest. They're at bliss at the fact that they know nothing. And I wrote this just actually the other day. This is so cool that it's coming full circle. I wrote this. I said, having the freedom to know nothing is bliss.
Right. And it's interesting. That made me think of the Matrix, where like the opposite of that, maybe the adversarial perception of that is that ignorance is bliss, but it is totally different, because to know that you know nothing is not ignorance. That is true wisdom. That's the spiral. That's the two, like the serpents of the caduceus, of the DNA. That's like the two paths becoming one and going away and coming back and being interwoven in a harmonious state. That is the wisdom. And it's like, and people would say, well, ignorance is bliss. Like, if I didn't know shit, then I'd be happy. But it's like, that's not true necessarily, because knowledge is part of the journey, and understanding the paths of service to self and service to others, or good and evil, however you want to define the tree of knowledge. It's not that it was a regret. It's not a regret to know that knowledge. It's about, once you have that knowledge, what are you going to do next? And the answer is nothing, because you already had the wisdom. The wisdom of being is that you didn't need the tree of knowledge to exist in the first place. So it's that hero's journey. It's that hero's journey.
That's so crucial. You didn't need the knowledge of good and evil to exist in the first place. You didn't even need it.
It's
We've
like,
never needed it.
it's like a program, you know, like
It
I've
was
talked.
literally the most crucial lie that we didn't have the knowledge to begin with.
Yeah. And it's, we've said this before, I'll say it again, is that we're moving from the era of belief into the era of knowing.
Yeah.
And knowing Noah incorporating wisdom in this context, but going from the era of belief into the era of knowledge of believing and making things up of who we are, or where we came from, and having faith, and basically having that wall there and having to make stories up about what's on the other side, into the era of knowledge of, yeah, once you know who you are, you don't have to try to break through the wall. Once you know who you are and you have that wisdom, that wall just disappears. And that's the nature of the apocalypse. It's the lifting of the veil. The veil just disappears. And that is really, really interesting.
Well, and I must run because it is getting a Sabbath here, and I spend 24 hours with the Prime Creator. It's my favorite time of the week. But I wanna say this last thing, and I'm so excited about this that you just said that, because it truly is knowing who we are, and that's what Eve did not know, why she felt she needed to take an additional whatever it was within her being from the outside to the inside, because she didn't know who she was and she already had it on the inside. And I feel like A2K, I think we're gonna like make this t-shirt or something, and it's gonna have it'll be like a white t-shirt and maybe with like rainbow print. I'm not sure. We'll figure it out. But it's going to say Human 3.0. And I really do believe that we're moving into the Human 3.0 era. And to me, what that means is where we're going to remember who we are, which we've always talked about. Remember who you are. Remember. And then knowing is natural.
Yeah. And it's knowing at the center of the word knowing is the word now.
Yeah.
It's all about being
right
present.
now.
It's all about being present. Yeah. And the thing about the Matrix, like just with the taking of the symbolic thing of taking the red pill, like Neo said, or Morpheus said to Neo, you didn't come here to make the choice. You came here to understand why you made the choice. And the choice in the beginning was taking the red pill. And it was a false choice, because if you took the red pill or you took the blue pill, you're thinking one will be different than the other. But the reality is that they're the same, because really the root of taking the red pill or taking the blue pill is the word taking. You're taking.
Wow.
And what Neo had to learn on his journey of becoming the one was that he had to return to the source. He was the one who had to give himself back in order for the Matrix to be reset. So it's this great journey about taking, realizing that we took, and making the choice to give back.
Which is so the story of Yeshua. And I'm so happy that you just said that, because you and I have always said, take the purple pill.
Yeah, the purple pill. Put
yeah.
blue and red together makes purple. And
yeah.
like you had said, you had a red string around your wrist.
Yeah, I did.
It's the purple. And it was like, well, purple is a higher vibration. It's the all-seeing eye, or the third eye chakra. So it oversees everything. It's the royal color.
The violet flame is one of my favorite prayers. Now, Alex, truly, I'm so excited about this. This is just touching the tip of the iceberg in terms of our conversations. And I'm so excited for others to get excited about their journey, because I really feel like that is why A2K happened in our journey before it happened on a podcast or a wisdom cast, if you will, because you and I really needed to go through our own A2K, our own, purple pill journey, in order to get others excited about taking their purple pill journey. It's not about the knowledge of good and evil anymore. It's about wisdom. We're going after the tree of life now. And I'm so excited to get other people excited about this.
Yes, and this is the first of many. For everybody listening, thank you so much. If you're listening to this point in the cast, in the Wisdom Cast, we both honor you so much, and it's such a pleasure to be on this planet with you, and for Kara, I love you. I respect you. I'm so happy we've had this great conversation. I'm glad you're doing well. Have a great, wonderful Sabbath and enjoy Montana because you know it is a wonderful place.
Indeed, indeed. And actually, I'm in South Dakota, but it's okay
Wow. I said, yeah, I'm sorry.
I feel like Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, and Idaho have this whole vibe, and I'm so excited for other people to visit and experience this. And
Yep.
Alex, you sound so strong, and many, many, many blessings to you. May the Prime Creator just always protect you and guide you and keep you close on your purple journey, because truly, Alex, I have been so inspired by you on your access to knowledge journey, and it's why I'm here. I mean, and also let's give a shout out to Uncle Bruce, Dr. Bruce Lipton. Let's give a huge shout out, because truly the understanding he has with cells and of gates and channels is also why both you and I are here.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Uncle Bruce. We totally admire you, and we appreciate everything you've been doing, and we both pray that you just continue having a lovely time. Your childlike spirit and your infinite elderly knowledge combined.
Indeed.
It's like he's almost like a Captain Planet in a way.
He is. And so many blessings out to all of your listeners, Alex, and many blessings out to all of the light bearers on this planet, and just many blessings to all of creation, because we're all in this together.
That's right. We are. And until next time, let's get together. Everyone have a lovely afternoon. God bless you, and enjoy your evening, your morning, and your afternoon.
Indeed. Bye.
Bye-bye.